This is the Gene Keys Pearl sequence, and it's about finding prosperity through simplicity. I've been hesitant to make a video on the Pearl. I've already done the activation sequence and the Venus sequence, so check those out if you haven't yet. And I've been hesitant about the Pearl because I feel like it is still brewing in me. I'm still contemplating it, and I haven't yet seen it crystallize in my life. One of the things we're going to talk about is this pathway of growth and how you can walk the pathway of growth and not have an open heart and not be coming from a place of service. And that was my story. And so I am revamping my life in this vein. And I'm not quite sure how it's all coming together yet. My brand is not yet clear. My vocation is clear to me, but I'm not sure how it manifests in the world. I'm not your normal spiritual teacher. I've had men's groups and I've sat in ceremony as an angel, and I've tried to be things that I am not, because ultimately I know that I am on this planet to serve God and to help people remember why they're actually here and what's important. But up until this point, I've just tried to replicate other people's versions of that thing. And I can't do that anymore. Nonetheless, let's talk about the Pearl sequence. So the Pearl sequence starts here at your sphere of vocation. And that sphere of vocation is the same sphere as your core wound coming out of the Venus sequence. So this is the same as like your purpose was in activation, where it's the final sphere of the activation sequence and the first sphere of the Venus sequence. Well, your core wound serves as the final sphere of the Venus and the first sphere of the Pearl. And the sphere of your vocation represents what you are here to do in the world. Basically, you worked your way down to your core wound, and you understand at the deepest levels what is driving your behavior. And now we can go into that shadow and come out with the gift that allows us to use that lesson that we got from our wound and to share it with the world. And that's ultimately what the vocation is about. Now, there are 6 lines that go along with this wisdom. And down here, I wrote the lines specifically for the Pearl because those sort of apply to all of them. But especially for the vocation and the culture, there are some very specific things. So the sphere of vocation, if you are a first line, which is what I am, you are here to create, to be the script writer, to produce new things, to go into the void and to come back with new knowledge or new synthesis. Now compare that to the second line vocation, where you are the marketer, you are the agent, you are the person that is designed to take that first line wisdom and to spread it with the rest of the world. I'm not going to go through each of the 6 lines, but it's really important that you understand your line for the sphere of vocation, because it dictates where or how you are supposed to create using your unique gifts. Now we go on to the pathway of initiative, connecting the sphere of vocation and the sphere of your culture. And the pathway of initiative, Richard Rudd, the founder of the Gene Keys, which if you are not familiar with the Gene Keys, go to genekeys.com, watch the video that's there, get your free hologenetic profile. It's going to have all of your spheres, which you're going to see a number 1 through 64, a dot, and then another number 1 through 6. And the second number is your line. The first number is the actual key that is within that sphere. So if you haven't done that, go and do that. I am not at all associated with Gene Keys. I'm not a coach. I am just a guy that has gone through this wisdom for the past couple years and is trying to pass it along. And again, that's why I've been hesitant to talk about the pearl, because it is still settling in me. But this pathway of initiative is about stealing fire from the gods, is what Richard Rudd says. It's about creating fire. It's about taking action. This is different from the activation sequence and the Venus sequence in that those are about reflection. The pearl is about taking that reflection out into the world and interacting with the world and interacting with your relationships and your purpose. So this initiative is using that wound as fuel to do something. And you taking that something, maybe it's writing a book, creating a video, putting together a show, literally helping a neighbor, literally anything. But when it comes from your core, your deepest place, that is a signal that shoots out into the universe. And then we get to the sphere of culture. And your culture is where you fit in with your fractal line. So your fractal line, way back when humans started, we all have sort of original ancestors. And then that line split and split and split and split. But within our DNA, within our genes, we remember which of those fractals we are a part of. And your culture tells you how you interact with your fractal line. So the best way to do this is to go through a couple of the lines. So I am a line 1 here, again, for my culture. And that means that that is the line of the entrepreneur. I am designed to go out into the world on my own to make or create something new and then share it with the world. Now, compare that with the, let's call it the second line, who works in partnership. So the second line works with one other person or one other thing. and that partnership is how they are designed. Then we go on to the third line, and that is the unit or small group. And then as an example, the fifth line is like a corporation, like a big sort of big business. And so this tells you how you are meant to work with other people, how you fit. Do you do best in small groups? Do you do best by yourself? Do you do best in a massive group? What is best? And then we get into this pathway of growth. And the pathway of growth we need to be careful with, like I mentioned, because you can grow in the shadow frequency. You can build something that actually takes off, but isn't in service, and eventually it's going to explode in your face. Or you can grow with your fractal line, and you're going to then be in line with your vocation, your true purpose on this earth, and the synchronicities that are going to come are going to be many. So as we walk this pathway of growth, then we get to the sphere of the brand. And your brand is the same sphere as your life's work. And I actually did a video on brand versus life's work if you want to check that out. But your brand is your soul's style. Your brand is your voice. It is how you resonate with people. It's your frequency, not necessarily what you're saying, but how you're saying it is what people will resonate with. And so this is about coming into who you are. What I was talking about at the beginning of this video, I said that stuff not so that you know who I am necessarily, but so that you can understand it in real time. I'm trying to build and develop my voice and my brand. And I'm sure parts of this video resonate and other parts don't. And that's because I'm still getting into resonance with that voice. So the lines of the brand here, first line brand is about safety. It's about security. It's about simplicity. Versus here, I'm a 6th line brand, and that is about vision, about the big picture, about nature, about education. So my brand is about vision compared with a 1st line brand about security or safety. And then you add in the gene key here, which I am a 32, which the shadow is failure, the gift is preservation, and the city is veneration. So for me, my brand, the message that I'm here to share with the world is to help people overcome failure. And now failure, there's really only one failure in this world, because success and failure, those are just things that we create in our own mind. If you see something as a failure, you haven't zoomed out far enough yet. How can you know if something succeeds or fails? What could come next? Could be that thing that you see as a failure was the exact thing that leads to exactly what you needed in your life. So success and failure, that dichotomy, that duality is exactly that. It's something that we create in our brain. The one true failure is not living your purpose. It's turning your back on God. It's forgetting why we're actually here. And that failure comes from fear, comes from being scared. It comes from this underlying panic that everything could fall apart at every moment. And because we have that in our brain, we can't move into the gift, which is preservation, which is letting go of the fear of loss, that somebody's going to hurt me, and instead taking that energy and deciding what is worth preserving. So that is what I meant to talk about. And I meant to highlight the vision for people, to get people to trust in nature, to overcome that failure. So that is the brand. Then we get to the pathway of service, which you see leads back to the sphere of vocation. And here we talk about the Trinity, because initiative and growth isn't enough. Initiative and growth can lead to material success and a feeling of spiritual barrenness. But when we add in service, we seal the triangle and we get a constant flow of energy, just like a torus. It gets recycled, and we are always going to have what we need to serve our core wound, to serve our vocation, so that we can help the culture grow and be who they are meant to be in the world. Now, in the center, we have the pearl, the namesake for the pearl sequence. And the pearl is a return to simplicity. The pearl is different than these spheres because the pearl is a sphere of absorption. It's a sphere of going back to the beginning. So, a quick story. There is an old nursery rhyme, and this is in the Pearl Sequence teachings from Richard Rudd, where a woman feels like her house is too small. And so a wise man tells her to bring in her pig and put it in the house, and bring in her ox and bring in her horse. And then all of a sudden there's this little tiny house and all these animals are inside, and it feels even smaller than it did before. Then the wise man says, put all the animals out. And the woman thinks, oh my gosh, my house is so big. And that is the gene keys. Your life was perfect as it was before. You just couldn't see that yet. And so the pearl helps you to see that. And when you get to the pearl, the gene keys teachings can self-destruct. They can go away because God is in the ordinary, not in a retreat somewhere, not in a medicine journey, not in a heart workshop, not in anything other than your own heart right here. And what's interesting is that no matter what key you have and what line you have, a piece of that is going to resonate with your life. And that does not negate the Gene Keys teachings. But it should make you think about ultimately what this teaching represents, which is a one single energy. When the pearl dawns, everything is working together. So we talk about the pearl holding not just the pearl sequence, but within, holographically encoded in the pearl, is the activation sequence and the Venus sequence. You feel them all come online. And then you attain prosperity. And then you live your purpose. And then you have an open heart. And then we can remember. So forgive me that this one's a little bit more jumbled. As I said, I'm still sitting with it. That was the best of what I had today. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Thank you for listening.